All right, good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 12th meeting of the Animal Wellbeing Commission. This meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call roll to establish a quorum?
Yes, good evening. Today's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube in English and Spanish. Please note that the live captioning and translations are AI generated and may contain errors. Members, if you can please unmute your microphones for roll call. Commissioner Treat?
Here.
Commissioner Wells?
Here.
Commissioner Berga?
Here.
Commissioner Contreras is absent. Commissioner Hayes is absent. Commissioner Bargan is absent. Commissioner Bell?
Here.
Commissioner Benedict?
Here.
Vice Chair Bagley?
Here.
Commissioner Christie?
Here.
Commissioner Asquith is absent. Commissioner Martinez?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia?
Here.
Commissioner Morris?
Here.
And Chair McDowell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Before we begin, a brief reminder for the public in attendance. Speaker slips are to be submitted digitally. It's a brand new process. There's a kiosk outside. You can register by scanning the QR code located on the back window there, or through the kiosk outside. Submissions must be received prior to the item being called. Once the item is called, public comments will be closed, and you will no longer be able to register for that item. Each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. We will now proceed with today's agenda. Okay, please rise if you're able to for the opening acknowledgement in honors of the Sacramento Indigenous people and tribal lands. Can I ask Commissioner Christie to lead the?
To the original people of this land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu, Valley and Plains Miwok, Patwin Wintun peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe, may we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's Indigenous peoples' history, contributions, and lives. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So next is the approval of the consent calendar. Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
We do not have any speakers for the consent, Chair.
All right, thank you. Are there any commissioners who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
Oh, it's always a dance.
It's been a month.
Commissioner Morris?
Just once again, the meeting minutes and the follow-up log are both in the consent calendar.
Correct. Those are the two items, yes.
Had questions about the follow-up log. Do we talk about that during the consent calendar, would you say, or would we do it later?
Is it like to remove items? I believe we can discuss that here. Just, it's proposed to remove items, yeah. It would be to just like an active discussion of an item, or it would have to move out. But to removal, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed a couple that probably should come off, and I think other people may have noticed some, so.
So which ones are you proposing to remove?
I am proposing to remove.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm at the wrong mic. Thank you. So the first one seems to be, I believe, the ordinance, the new
Item one?
ordinance. And then the number 10, I think it said that was complete, so those are the two that jumped out at me.
They were the two I had on my list as well, so I
Hey,
concur.
great minds.
Is there anyone who has any issues with removing item 1 and item 10 off of the follow-up log? All right. Duly noted. We will have them struck for the next list. Any other discussion or comments about either the follow-up log or the minutes from the last meeting? All right, is there a motion and a second for the consent calendar?
So moved. I make a motion.
Okay, Benedict moves, Garcia seconds. All right, all in favor, say aye, and please make it so we can hear you.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, now we are going to proceed with the discussion calendar. I did want to reorder a couple of these items. So first, I wanted to, first item will be commissioners' comments, ideas, and questions. So that would be then now number 3. Number 4 will remain as the manager's report, and then number 5 will be the community spay and neuter clinic. So we're just flipping some items. Okay. All right. So I know that I was requested to have the commissioners' comments first. So who, if you would want to speak on the item, please do so. Request. All right, Commissioner Berga?
I'm kind of excited because we have our new director here. I don't know if we're going to introduce her, if she's going to come up and say hello, but
She will be, I'm sure.
is that later on? I don't know what the plan
Manager's
is.
report. Although, I actually
Okay.
do want to pause because I totally forgot
Yeah, I think so.
to welcome our new commissioner.
Yeah.
So we have a new commissioner joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself to the commission and the public?
Yeah, hi, my name is Itzel Martinez. Yeah, I'm the new youth commissioner. I'm so grateful to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, moving back. Commissioner Berga.
Okay, so I applied to be a volunteer. And I just had a few comments about the application process and just some of the things that I noticed. Because especially I want our new director to just get some insights on this about volunteering and how important it is. But I must say that there was some language in the application process that I found really concerning. And essentially what it said is that you can be terminated for any reason at all that a volunteer can. And it didn't say what the grounds were for what that termination would be. It just said that you could be terminated for any reason at all. And I having known a lot of different volunteers at Front Street throughout the years, and know that I think there is a perception that it can be a difficult position to have, because if you speak up too much for animals sometimes, that's a problem. And I think it's, become that way over the years, more so than it ever used to be, because I used to be a volunteer back in the day. And I almost feel like reading the volunteer guidebook, and just from a lot of things that I've heard from some, not all volunteers, is that rather than it being so appreciated that they're there to help and do everything they can to help animals, there's a lot of fear. Like, what if I say the wrong thing? Am I going to say something that's going to get me in trouble and I won't be able to help animals anymore? So I just wanted to bring that up and bring that to the attention of the director and the commission. And I don't know if anybody else has had any recent experiences volunteering or would like to share as well.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes. So, I've been volunteering there for over 12 years now. I've not had any concerns of me speaking out or coming to management or directors or even veterinarians about my concerns with any of the care of the animals that are being done. I also know that there has been people that have been released of their volunteer jobs because they've been disrespectful to the staff, and that's totally unacceptable. I don't care who you are. You don't talk disrespectful to the staff. They are there, they're paid, they're doing their job. So if that is what has caused some people to get released from their volunteer position, then good. Because I don't want to be talked to disrespectfully, and I'm sure you don't either. So, there are reasons why people do get dismissed from, their roles as volunteers. If you've done something and you're brought in to the volunteer office and said, hey, we don't think that this is really appropriate for you to be saying or doing, blah, blah, blah. Can you please stop? And you continue to do it, yeah, you need to go. Because then you're not respecting their guidelines. I mean, in a job, you can be discharged for no cause. So why would it be different for a volunteer who's not even getting paid to have that happen? So that's my 2 cents.
Commissioner Christie.
I was just going to offer that in my years of working with a number of nonprofits in domestic animal welfare and in wildlife, that it's typical for the policy for volunteer programs to be kind of an at-will. Since they're not treated as employees, they don't have the worker protection in the same manner, and that maybe what you're talking about is having a system in place to kind of nurture that healthy environment where we can give feedback to the shelter, that volunteers can give feedback to the shelter. So maybe that will be something for their new director to look at, new manager to look at, so that people understand how to have a respectful dialogue when they're trying to give feedback.
Commissioner Berga.
Exactly. I think that's a really good call. And I think, well, I've been a business owner all my life. And so, I've run restaurants and I've run real estate companies. And I think one of the most important things that you can do is have really clear policies and procedures and make it clear what is acceptable, what is not, what would be grounds for termination, what wouldn't be, what is okay and what isn't. And what I've heard from a lot of volunteers that have gone through the orientation process recently is that it's not really clear, what you can and can't do. And I think if you are going to be able to terminate an employee, volunteer for any reason, that it should be clear what those reasons are, and that there should be due process, so that if someone is brought in and something is said regarding that, that they have an opportunity to tell their side of the story and participate in that. So that's what I was going to say there.
I have volunteered at the shelter off and on as I can, and I've had some really good experiences with staff, and I've also had some very negative ones. One of the things I can say as a volunteer is, especially if you aren't a volunteer that can be there every day, is that there's very little support and very little training. I know one experience I had the very first time I helped out with the laundry, literally just read the machine trying to figure it out, and had a staff member come in and completely chastise me and yell at me because one of the chemicals was empty, a chemical that I knew absolutely nothing about, nor would I have looked for, had never been trained. I'm reading the machine to turn it off and on, and that was self-teaching because there was nobody doing laundry, and there was no staff except for this one who, by the way, is no longer there, who came in to yell at me because one of the disinfectants was empty, which, I'm sorry, that also should not be a responsibility of a volunteer to even be checking that, but there have been other, very positive experiences, staff saying, hey, thank you very much, and very negative experiences, like the last time I volunteered, parking across the street, someone from the auto museum came running out to me, and he said, hey, just down this, about a block down, there was a homeless encampment where there are, and the people have not been seen there in over a week. He had been going out feeding the dogs, that were there. They were tied to the fences. This was, the weather's not good. And he says, they're out of water. I've got nothing to bring water to them. Can you have somebody at least bring them water? And so I went in and spoke to one of the volunteer coordinators who told me to don't even bother with it. And if he wants any assistance for those dogs, he needs to call 311. And so that to me, not the best or most professional response whatsoever to one of your volunteers. But again, I've also had some really great staff experiences. So as far as the releasing people, I do know that there have been some people who were dog walkers. One particular that was released because she was advertising the dogs on her personal Facebook page as, they're at risk for euthanasia. So, look at this great dog. And because she was using the euthanasia word, was asked not to come back again. If there were other situation around that, I don't know of them. That is what was relayed to me by the person who was asked not to come back, and she states that that's what she was specifically told the reason for it. So I don't know, but hopefully this is all a work in progress, and we need to work on getting our volunteers supported and trained better, and I know that there's a new process in place with leads to help with that, so that's a fantastic move. I think, Ryan, actually, that was something that was around for you that you put in place, which is fantastic because, sometimes I go in and I have no clue what, they're like, hey, can you help sort the donations? Okay, I don't know where they go, and now there's a lead that I can go out and find, so I'm excited about that. But Commissioner Bell.
As far as what you're saying, Julie, Commissioner Verga, about, they're not sure if they do this or say this, that they're going to get in trouble, so why not ask? I mean, it's simple as, hey, is it okay if I do this? And if they're told no, then they know.
I was on a different topic, so if other people are still on this topic.
Well, it's okay. I'll say something. As a volunteer there, I've had nothing but great experience with the staff. I think in the area that Denise and I work in the most is one that the staff really appreciate because it's an isolated area and the time spent in there is exorbitant if you have a lot of kittens and ringworms. So they really appreciate it. I report off to someone every day if there's something I think I need. I'm on the radio, they come in, and I think they're really appreciative. I think I get thanked every single time I leave from that area. So I haven't experienced a bad experience with any of the staff there at all.
Commissioner Morris, did you want to?
Different topics.
Okay. Commissioner Benedict?
Yes, I haven't been a volunteer at the shelter for many years. I was years ago, and I was so impressed with how many times, this was during the Gina years, this is pre-Mr. Zimmerman, every single time I went in there to volunteer, every single staff person that saw me in that purple little vest thing, apron, would say, thank you for being here. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you for volunteering. And I felt so appreciated. But then fast forward when the new era came and Mr. Zimmerman came along, that's when things sort of changed and my experience it was more negative and I didn't feel as appreciated. And I subsequently just stopped volunteering, and partly because I got real busy too. It wasn't just that, but I will say that what a difference it makes when you feel like you are welcome and contributing and wanted and, part of the team. It really makes you want to go more and want to help more. And I think that's what Front Street needs, right? So I don't know if we can, maybe clarify the handbook a little bit or maybe make it more clear as to what will get you fired and what won't, or just things that will get you fired. Maybe just some more clarity, and it would be great if that atmosphere of, thank you for being here came back, because, I want to come back too.
Commissioner Berga?
Okay, on another topic, I have this week received, kind of anonymously, a lot of public records requests, I guess, that were on the public records website and were available to the public. And I did not ask for them. And they had a lot of emails concerning all kinds of things. But one thing in particular that was of concern and that I have attached here in one of my handouts are emails between some of the commissioners and some of the Front Street staff. And it has to do with the ad hoc large dog committee and the desire to basically have private meetings with city staff before the entire commission or working group met. And I just find it very concerning, and I'd like to get some guidance on how this fits into appropriate conduct for commissioners. And if you look at some of the emails, some of the languages of the email is, the purpose is to review the ad hoc recommendations privately with you, and this is to city staff, to discuss options that seem most reasonable to implement sooner than later. Then when Hillary and Jamie join in a meeting next week, we have a good idea about which strategies to promote and which to postpone. And, you can look at, some of these emails here, but I think I wanted it on the record. I think the purpose of this commission should be to help animals. That should be the underlying concern that we all have, is that we can do whatever we can to help animals, and we should be coming together to do that. Now, I understand that we all have our different backgrounds, but for me personally, that's why I'm here, and I find it concerning that, that in this instance, our chair and our vice chair, who have extensive knowledge and information, and who have for many, many years rescued and helped large dogs, and were only part of this group to help save their lives and to find adoption, to increase adoptions for them, we're basically kind of being left out of that conversation and steered in another direction. And so, I wanted it to go in the record, and I just think that this is not appropriate for this commission, and that's why I have this handout here.
Commissioner Morris?
It's kind of a nice segue, because what I wanted to speak about is the worksheets that I put around. Because as Commissioner Berga talks about the work of this commission, this is the specific work of this commission.
Commissioner Morris, would you just mind talking closer to the
Wrong,
mic?
I'm
Thank you.
speaking to the wrong mic, you're right. So I wanted to bring this back to this meeting to see whether people are feeling that the work we're doing is within the multiple charges to this commission, the things that the ordinance says very specifically we should be working on. And so it feels like at some points we've gotten pretty far afield of sort of a lot of dialogue, but not very specific things that we're trying to encourage. And so I brought this forward to kind of remind, and as well as share with some of the new team commissioners that some of the responsibilities that are very specific in the ordinance. And so that I just wanted to review why people are finding this on their table, and make that focus on the ordinance and what we're working on.
Okay. Yeah, these, I have to say, I'm just quick looking at these email and digesting, I do agree it's problematic for one of our commissioners to completely exclude people that are part of a work group and make very specific I don't want them there. That is not very collegial to the bare minimum. And hopefully that is not a practice that is going to be continued or respected by staff of the shelter. Commissioner Bagley?
That on?
Yeah.
Well, when I saw the emails, particularly the one that excludes Jamie and myself 3 times in one short email to try to set up a pre-meeting where we were excluded. It's, I don't know if it's problematic. It has a chilling effect. It's hard to trust a group if they're excluding you. But what's important to know, and I keep coming back to the animal thing, I know that Jamie picked the large dog adoption work group because she's an expert in large dogs. Shepherds, huskies, fostering, owning, she's had them throughout raising her family. And I've had pit bulls, pit bull crosses consecutively for 39 years. This made me add them up, some good, some bad, breaking up the drama that happens. I'm an expert in it. I'm the kind of person that would volunteer to be a mentor. Those are the dogs that are killed most often. Those are the dogs that aren't adopted very often. Those are the dogs that come back all the time. And so I really wanted to be on the working group to try to mentor some of the adopters who find themselves with a dog a breed they've never had before. They want to keep it, but then things happen. So I've been there many times. But I don't like to be excluded. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was immature. I thought it was Mean Girl. I thought it was the Real Housewives of Front Street. That's what went through my mind. And I didn't like that someone tried to pull Mr. Hinderman in to something so unprofessional. So I don't really hold grudges, especially when it's animal work. I can tell you that. But I want you to know how it made me feel.
Commissioner Verga.
In response to talking about the work plan, I mean, I think we have been doing good work here, but I guess that's debatable, you know, but you may think it's not. For instance, I know you didn't vote for final plea, and clearly looking at these emails that you're not a fan of it. But we did make a motion and we voted to put that forward because we felt, at least those that voted for it, that it was a life-saving program. And I still do. So I think you're saying that it's not productive work, and I'd say, well, I think that was really productive. Now I know it's stalled right now, and hopefully we can have conversations with April about how to make that a great program going forward. But I can just say in my rescue work that, you know, final pleas work. We do it all the time. We've been saving dogs today that, you know, are great, wonderful dogs that are going to die if we don't find homes for them. And as far as the large dog ad hoc committee, I mean, I think that the idea of having a large dog ad hoc committee to save their lives is really great work. I think the ordinance that Ms. Street was so instrumental in advancing, you know, that made change the law from 3 to 4 dogs can be a game changer, especially when they have to be spayed or neutered, and that's part of it. So anyhow, that's one thing that I would like to say regarding that.
Commissioner Benedict.
Yeah, I just want to say that looking at this right now, I mean, it's, I guess I would say it's a little bit shocking, but more importantly, I think that it just seems to not make sense, because, I mean, I think we have to remember why we're here, and that's for the animals and for the well-being of the animals, and collaboratively working together and not trying to undermine each other instead of, let's just, I mean, if we're 2 people or 4 people are on a committee, it just makes sense that everybody on that committee works together. So I don't see the need for this kind of thing, because I think everybody who signs up for these ad hoc or smaller committees really do have the animals' best interests at heart. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Morris? Garcia?
Just as a reminder, this takes me back to a few months ago when Commissioner Asquith and I were excluded from the final plea committee because of the way we voted. So there again is another issue to consider as well.
And
And I
yes, and it was, you cannot exclude folks who want to be a part, because that is not how this works. We're a democratic society. And again, just trying to bring this back so we can move on. One thing I want to point out, and I think Ryan was planning to address in his report, is we have done some good work and have some brainstorm ideas that I participated in, even though I was apparently not exactly welcomed, for moving forward with large dog adoptions, and we have some ideas planned out from our small work group. So even though you may not want to always work with everybody, everybody does have something to contribute. But we should move on for a timely manner. Commissioner Berga?
To another topic, the only thing I wanted to say regarding excluding anybody from that last committee, no one was excluded. I just was wondering why you wanted to be on that committee if you voted no against final plea. So that was that. So the other thing that came to light in all these public records requests and emails that were sent to me were extensive emails from the former chair, Paul Hefner, from last year, to Director Zimmerman and to the city clerk's office, clearly indicating that they absolutely had, that the chair of this commission and the vice chair had substantive ability to set the agenda for this commission, okay? And I say this at almost every meeting, and I'm sure it irritates our city attorney to no end, and I'm sorry, but I do not understand how it has changed so significantly from last year to this year, okay? And if you look at some of these email communications, it's clear that you can see, hey, this is my agenda. This is what I would like it to say. That's coming from the chair. Director Zimmerman says, okay. All the details, which my understanding have been similarly submitted from our chair and vice chair this year and have been largely ignored, including tonight's and we had a couple meetings, I think, that the actual items that we wanted on the agenda per the chair and vice chair got on it, and that a motion and vote or whatever the recommendation were to be occurred, okay? It's been unusual. And the reason why I think it's so important to keep bringing this up is this commission can really have a great impact and effect to help animals. And that's why we were appointed, that's why we were here. And so I'm going to ask again of the city attorney or city staff, whoever wants to answer that question, why the agenda setting process has changed so dramatically from last year to this year, and under what authority?
Mike Benner from the City Attorney's Office. We've provided that authority multiple times to this body, in writing and in emails and verbally. The agenda is set by the city manager and her staff for everybody, every commission in the city. So that's all the city attorney has to say about that topic.
reviewing this email, the agenda was being set and submitted by the chair. So you've had a change in practice.
The city.
This is the past
I have
practice
not
right
had
here.
change. I have not had a change in practice. That has been my advice. That was Carson Vanderlinden's advice going back to last year. So that is the current rule, that the agenda is set by the city manager. There's nothing else to say about it.
Commissioner Morris?
Yeah, thanks. Since we are talking about what's on the record, I want to be clear that the vote that I did against the final plea program was not against the final plea program. It was against the draft that was received less than 48 hours prior to our meeting. It was not a completed document, and my vote against it was to not send a draft to PNPE. I also had forwarded edits to the work group, the person leading the work group, and I had also forwarded to the person leading the work group some additional reference material that supported a final plea but offered some additional information. So I just want to make it clear that I voted no on a draft being forwarded out of this committee to the City Council Subcommittee of Policy and Public Employees. I did not vote no on a final plea program. I voted no on a draft.
Duly noted. And by the way, just a reminder for all that under Commissioners' comments, ideas, and questions is also the time that if you have other things you want to add to the follow-up log, this would be the time to do it. Commissioner Verga?
So I would just like to go on record as saying I would still like an explanation. If it's from the city manager, it's the city manager. If it's the city attorney, it's the city attorney. I would like a reasonable, logical explanation for why the agenda setting process from last year to this year has changed so significantly, okay? So with that being said, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm gonna wait and let Denise go, and then I'm gonna see if I can remember what I wanted to add.
Commissioner Bell?
I thought that was the purpose of that survey that we took with all the list of things that, like euthanasia, programs at the shelter, blah, blah, blah. And we all voted on what was most important down the list, and that was how some of the agenda items were gonna be put on the agenda. Unless I'm totally.
Correct, that is in part what the purpose of that was, yes.
Okay.
And as we get to them, they have been added based on that vote, based on whether or not the city attorney allows us to speak on things that people put as a higher priority, but apparently we are muffled on. So, yeah. Commissioner Verga?
Can't remember what I was gonna say about something to be added. Sorry, I'm gonna have to.
All right, before we wrap this section up then and move on, do people have things they want to add to the follow-up log for future discussion? Commissioner Benedict?
Well, I just wanted to add that I thought that I guess, what was it, what we voted on, the poll, was more of a kind of, what we thought in an order, but not necessarily what would go on the agenda, because some of the things, for example, a new shelter. Sure, I mean, for me, that's number one, but we don't have the money. It's not going to happen. I mean, so I wouldn't put that as number one on agenda for us to talk about, because it's not going to happen anyway. Like, we got to kick that can down the road. So I didn't see that as this is your vote on how we should prioritize things on the upcoming agendas. Just wanted to say that.
Commissioner Treat? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Verga.
Paula can go
And then
next.
Treat.
Now? Okay. Well, I am looking at the Wellbeing follow-up log, item 2 that I brought up in March of '25. It does show a discussion priority of 1, and I go off in December. So by next March, do you think that'll be done? a presentation? Could I get the presentation made before I leave in December?
That would be a presentation on euthanasia. That is something we've been told that the city attorney will not allow us to speak on. So the city attorney would have to respond to that.
Well, there's pending litigation regarding that, but as far as whether it gets on the agenda or not, that's up to the city manager.
Oh, then I have a follow-up question. I've been told that we cannot go to the city council to ask for items to be put on the agenda. Is that correct?
The city council doesn't set the agenda, the city manager does.
And who does the city manager work for?
Well, he or she is hired by the city council.
Okay,
You
so
can all talk to your city council members if you want. I don't know where that advice came from.
that advice came from Minnie Cuppy when she made a presentation to us about 9 months ago.
That as a body, you can't go to.
We
You are
didn't
an
need to even go.
This body is an advisory body to the city manager's office. That's all you are. If you'd like to individually approach your council
Advisory on
members.
policy and suggestions. I helped write the charter. We were advised that going to city council did not matter, that the agenda was not set by them.
That's true. But
Okay.
you have the ability as a member of the public to address your council member, just like I do, just like anybody on this commission does, so.
I'll be talking to every single city council member and the mayor about 325, and I still would like some answers.
One of the things I would like to add to the follow-up log is a discussion about Front Street and working with rescues, kind of get find out what the process is and how many rescues we're working with and how do we increase the number of rescues that we work with. I've heard recently that the process for pulling animals for rescues is a torturous one at the bare minimum. And so I thought that that would be a good agenda item to add for the follow-up log. Commissioner Verga?
I'm just going to follow up on that cease and desist discussion, because I know you said the city attorney indicated that that could not be discussed because there was pending litigation. My one question would be, is that something that could be discussed in a closed session then, with this body?
I would have to look into that. I'm not sure what the closed session rules are for this commission.
Okay, I'm not either. Okay, thank you. And then the other thing that I think should be added to the agenda item, and maybe it's just something that we can discuss with our new director, but one thing that's become, well, one thing that I know that's been an ongoing nightmare issue for many, many years is the kennel cleaning protocols at Front Street. And I know right now, I guess it's primarily a volunteer duty, which I find as an employer very concerning, because I don't know, as we've talked about, they're at will, and what's the oversight and responsibilities of a volunteer versus a shelter staff. But I just know nobody ever wants to clean the kennels, and I understand why. It's not a fun job. But one of the things that it was actually an idea of a long-time volunteer there. She said, it's too bad there isn't a company that could be hired to come in and do the mandatory, like OSHA type of cleaning every day, scrub them, sanitize them, do all that.
Just a point of order, that sounds like a great discussion when we get it on the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but
Okay,
just
so I'm
keep,
going into too much detail. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So kennel cleaning,
kennel cleaning.
hiring someone.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Commissioner Christie.
Thanks. It's possible this will become relevant when we get into our discussion of the spay and neuter funding, but in case this isn't part of it, I would like it to be on the follow-up log for the future. I'd like to understand better the voucher opportunities that the city participates in. I think I remember discussion of the DocuPet income going towards that program, and then mention of the difficulties administering that program, just the staff time involved. So that's something I'm really interested in volunteering in and assisting with. So if we could talk about that at a later date, that'd be great.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, she's controlling it too. Okay, thank you. I noticed that there's no mention on the follow-up log of any discussion or presentation by staff of the mandatory spay and neuter on the second reclamation and the no waiver of fees on the first reclamation. And the language I thought we changed about 2 to 3 meetings ago. So that may be part of the manager's report, I'm not sure, but I don't see anything on the follow-up log about it. And I do think it's very important because it is a mandatory obligation by the city. And I'd like to know if that changed or if we've remedied that issue, which is a very important issue because we don't need any more intact animals out in the community. Thank you.
All right, anything further on this? Very good. Oh, Commissioner Benedict.
I'm just curious now, since we have added some additional items to the follow-up log that seem like they're fairly critical, and some just have a TBD, we don't even have a number on them. Is there a way we can move some things up? Like, I think the spay and neuter, the mandatory spay and neuter, working on possibly having an ordinance for mandatory spay and neuter. We desperately need it. I mean, the Front Street's exploding with animals. Is there a way we can move some of these up or maybe renumber them? Like the kennel cleaning, maybe add that as a discussion item that we can move up to the top of the list?
Well, like we said, when we did the poll, it was a guidance, and the city staff, and hopefully maybe they'll talk to me about it, and we can collaborate on trying to draft and adjust things based on priority. But thank you. Good suggestion. Commissioner Berga?
I was just going to say that to Kelly's point, that poll, quite frankly, that took me by surprise and I wasn't expecting that. But I think the purpose of a chair and a vice chair is that you're kind of reading the room to determine what is important. And there's always things that are going to be changing and that are, more dynamic that are going to change that. It's good to get that input from everybody about what's important, but half those things can't even be included because, they've been a subject of a cease and desist letter. So anyhow, that's all.
Commissioner Treat.
Yeah, I was going to say, Commissioner Benedict, why don't you take number 1? It's never going to get done for me. Maybe I'll do it for you.
All right, anything further? Okay, very good. We are going to now thankfully move on to the manager's report. Do we have any public speakers on this topic?
Would you like to take speakers first before the presentation?
Oh, sorry. No, we should do the presentation.
Okay.
You don't want to go down there. I have a clicker.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for being here tonight. I know it's been a couple of months, some things to catch you guys up on. Hey. All right, so our statistics for July, sorry, let me. Our statistics for July are here. And total intakes, we had 982. Let's see. Euthanasias, 99 cats, 57 dogs. Overall live release rate 81%, cat live release rate 72%, and dog live release rate 88%. And I realized that I put July but did not include June in the PowerPoint. So I'll go through those numbers as well. So in June, we had a total of 1,164 animals intaken. For cat euthanasias, that was 104. For dogs, it was 46. Our overall live release rate was 84%. For cats, it was 77%, and live release rate for dogs was 91%. My clicker is not working. Oh, there we go. And Commissioner Bell, who works with our Kitten Connection program, shared some statistics. A while back, I sent out an email to the commission that kind of reviewed our Kitten Connection program, how it works, the overall mission. So for some of you who are newer, if you're interested in an overview of that program, let me know and I can just forward you the email that I sent to everyone. But these are some statistics for 2025. So 460 calls were supported by the Kitten Connection program that previously would have fallen onto the animal control team. So that allowed them to focus on the many other priorities and demands of the city. 7.5% of all strays intaken were done through the Kitten Connection program, with 309 total cats served. So great job to that small but mighty and very hardworking volunteer team. Let's see. There we go. Okay, kennel improvements. When I made this PowerPoint, I said the version 3 of the kennel was coming soon. That actually happened today. So the main thing was a new latch. So for those of you who have been able to look at the kennel, I've gotten some good feedback from the commission, from volunteers, from staff. Had a lot of ability to test the version. This new version has a new latch that is easier to operate and is pretty innovative. It allows the door to swing both in and out, which has a number of benefits as far as kind of management of animals as you're getting in and out, especially multiple animals in kennel, and also provides some safety improvements, being able to get out of the kennel if you need to, or for someone to be able to get into the kennel to help someone. And this latch allows that, and it also will stop the door if you're opening it inward and the dog were to jump up and, a big German Shepherd or something and kind of slam the door. We have had employees who have, gotten hit in the head by that door coming out really fast. So this latch also will stop the door from swinging all the way out if that were to happen. So hopefully that's our last iteration, and we can move forward with that soon. The 4-dog ordinance, I think everyone's aware, we got through council, so that is officially going into effect with the revised language that you all helped with on August 23rd. And then related to that, the item that you mentioned, Vice Chair, about the language, suggested language change, the Commission wanted that to go to PNPE, so that's the plan. We just haven't been able to set an agenda date for it. So it is planned for the future for the PNPE. Sure, it was related to, I don't have the exact language in mind, but it was related to on first impound, either mandating spay and neuter or requiring the person to pay a fee or some form of fees. Yeah. All right, policies and procedures. Our vendor visited us for 3 days last week, so they spent a lot of time shadowing staff in all areas of the shelter, the kennel techs, the officers, the medical building, and spent a special amount of time with the teams that work with the policies that they're going to be focusing on. There's a wide range of policies and procedures that touch every team, but they primarily relate to the animal care team and cleaning and rescue and euthanasia, and a lot of them relate to the officers as well. So they did, many hours of interviews to understand how things go, and so that's going to be really helpful for them understanding how we work and comparing it to the many other shelters that they've worked with. And I'll touch a little bit more on that when I talk about the disease prevention protocols. Some additional things that developed, I want to put on this list. The ad hoc, the working group for the large dog adoptions, we've had several meetings now where we've talked about different ideas. We have a kind of a big sort of master list of all the possible ideas for increasing large dog adoptions. And from that list, we kind of talked through which ones are feasible for staff and also currently, and which ones also would likely have some of the highest impact. So two that we have kind of been exploring more in depth is, one is a mailing, a physical mailing with some sort of adoption coupon to new homeowners, and specifically sending to areas where we know that the most adoptions come from, and we know that the most adoptions come from there because of the work that the ad hoc group did, researching, looking into our data, and seeing where our large dogs are getting adopted to, and then also research on home ownership and the likelihood of someone adopting a large dog. So I'm excited about that. We've been in conversations with our city's mailing vendor. We're designing a postcard, so we'll continue to work with the group on that, collecting feedback. So that's something we're excited about. And then the other thing is not specifically increasing adoptions, but it's preventing returns of adopted animals. I know that's something that's been brought up a few times here. And so there's a number of services now that we've looked at, and there are actually our new director brought one up that also sounds quite promising. The one that seems the most promising to the working group is called Pet Academy, and that is essentially a text message-based behavior support kind of hotline for adopters, as well as fosters, as well as folks who may be considering surrendering their pet for behavior reasons. And so the way essentially that it works is they are sort of tied in with the shelter's adoption software. They get a report every day that tells them which dogs have been adopted, and then they automatically reach out to those people, ask, hey, how's it going? Have you experienced any issues? What support do you need? And then they can, those folks can then message back, and they talk to a staff member with that company who I believe they're all behaviorists. That's something we want to confirm, but they're knowledgeable in any case, and they help them through those challenges. The company claims that shelters that they've worked with have seen a 50% reduction in their behavior returns. So we want to look into that a little more. We want to check some of their references and talk to some of the shelters they work with. But the company does offer a 3-month trial, so that's pretty low stakes, and seems like a beneficial thing to have. So that's some of the work with the working group on large dog adoptions. Also wanted to add a few staffing updates. So we have selected a new dog foster and rescue coordinator, as well as a new senior animal care technician. So their start dates will be within the next couple weeks. They are internal candidates, so they're already working interim in those roles. But we're very excited to have those positions filled. And interviews are scheduled for the end of August for our new shelter operations manager. So we're very excited about that. And all of our officer positions are now filled, which is a first in as far back as I can remember. Of course, they still have to be trained, but they're all filled, and that's the exciting part. And then as far as vacancies, we are still waiting for our veterinarian to apply and to be found. So hoping that will happen. And then we have 4 animal care technician vacancies currently. Okay. Must have. So that time I hit the, this is going the wrong way. This clicker doesn't like me today. There we go. There we go. Okay. If I didn't click too many times. Okay. So this is, this is not a discussion item. This is not going to be a super in-depth presentation, but kind of just the chair and vice chair had mentioned wanting to kind of have the commission filled in on the kind of the illness situation at the shelter, and then sort of our protocols around cleaning and disease control. So briefly, we have over the past several weeks seen an increased number of canine infectious respiratory disease complex, so that's CIRDC, commonly known as kennel cough, although according to our vets it's technically more complex than just kennel cough. But upper respiratory disease like this is very common in crowded shelters. It's spread primarily through coughing, sneezing, and direct contact. We tested for multiple pathogens that can cause CIRDC and identified mycoplasma is the main component for the current upper respiratory infection. There's not a vaccine for mycoplasma versus something like bordetella, which is typically the most common cause of kennel cough that we do have a vaccine for and we do vaccinate for on intake. Some dogs have had very mild symptoms, while others have had more severe symptoms. So it's very individualistic. The same, family of dogs can have drastically different responses to this. A handful of the animals that have developed this have developed pneumonia, which is a deep lung infection. And the progression to pneumonia typically happens due to immunocompromise. That can happen from stress, which a shelter is certainly that environment, secondary infections, age, or other underlying health conditions that weaken the immune system. And cases of CIRDC are higher than we normally see. However, it is normal for illness to come in waves through shelters and through communities as a whole, just like it does in schools that have dense populations of kids. You get that really bad flu or cold that comes through. The same thing happens in crowded shelters. Our vet described it to me as, these dogs are coming to kindergarten for the first time. The primary factors for this kind of increase that we're seeing is population density. So we've been very full, especially through July. It's one of the most difficult months for us. We've had very high intake. And also a meaner and more aggressive mycoplasma. And our vets have heard from other local vets, private vets, who have also noted this in their practice, seeing this more aggressive strain coming through. And with this strain, dogs are getting sick really fast. And so what are we doing to prevent disease? Well, in general, our staff wear personal protective equipment when handling animals and in high transmission risk situations, and changing clothes when necessary, using towels, things like that. We do vaccinations against common illnesses that can be contracted in a shelter. Like I mentioned, the bordetella. We also do DHPP, which protects against various respiratory viruses. We do daily cleaning and disinfecting protocols, including foaming of kennels and walkways. We have also, in response to this more aggressive illness, we've taken more aggressive cleaning measures. So we've increased our concentration of our surface disinfectant that's used to kill these things, and as well as cleaning certain key areas more thoroughly to prevent disease. We've also been, we have a whole process for identifying sick animals, and starting treatment, but due to how fast this current illness progresses in some dogs, we've been starting antibiotic treatment essentially as soon as we see the first symptom, and monitoring those animals extra closely. For the animals that have gotten pneumonia, it's somewhat individual because it affects animals differently, but we've added a couple different antibiotics to their treatment regimen and also given more intensive care depending on what they need, such as fluids or an appetite stimulant. In addition, we had some great conversations with our policies and procedures vendor. They've got a lot of experience managing shelters and seeing how shelters across the country do things. So they've had some good suggestions already, and we've asked that due to this situation, that the cleaning protocols are the first thing that they work on to really make sure that we're doing things best practice and everything we kind of can. But quality of clean is linked to quality of staffing and quantity of people and staffing that we have. So we are, short-staffed on animal care technicians. If folks take a sick day or they're on vacation, sometimes there's been days where we've had only, 3 animal care techs to feed, medicate, and clean the whole shelter before 11 for the staff side. We do rely on volunteers. Volunteers are definitely helpful. And we also were able to hire this summer 3 ACT animal care technician interns that have been really helpful with the cleaning. They're pretty much trained now on all that. So that has been helpful, but it's still a big lift, especially to get to that gold standard of cleaning that we would love to get to. Additionally, hiring a shelter ops manager will help with that, cleaning protocols, having someone who's really on top of ensuring those are getting done and our best practice, that's going to help a lot. And then whatever other help we can get to clean, if any commission members would like to help us out, that is something that's always needed. It's not the most fun job, but it is rewarding. You're knowing that you are, that you're, especially in times like these, preventing animals from getting sick, giving them a nice clean space. If everyone, I think we've got 15 commission members now, so if we call that 14 and everyone were to do 1 day every other week, that would be 1 commission member a day. That would be incredibly helpful. Okay. And a couple successes from the month of July. I sent everyone an email about the Foster event, so thanks to everyone who was able to share that out. We had a successful day. This one was a little bit different. We've done this emergency foster pickup before in response to disease outbreaks like strep zoo or when we've tried to make space for the holidays. And we've always put like a timeline on it, take the dog for 2 weeks or take it until, the new year. And that's great because you get more people showing up because they're like, oh, I have a set time when I know I can bring the dog back. The problem is, and we've had great success with that. I think our record was over 70 dogs in a single day. But the problem is then that date comes around and then all these dogs start coming back and we start to have this problem again. So this time our messaging was keeping the dog until they get adopted. So we did have fewer results. We had 39 dogs sent to foster. Those are primarily large dogs though. And so far I've definitely gotten better feedback from the foster teams about that. So that was successful. And then we also had 102 kittens adopted during our PetSmart National Adoption Week. So we're keeping those kittens moving through the system. All right, and with that, I'd like to invite our new shelter manager, April, up to the stage to introduce herself.
Good evening, Commission. I just want to start off by saying I am so incredibly excited to be here. There are just so many wonderful opportunities, and I can't wait to collaborate with all of you on them. I did want to make an introductory statement, so I went ahead and covered some items I'd like to read to you. But before I dive into that, I really just want to recognize Ryan Hinderman for stepping up into a very big role and just being a great pillar for the animal shelter and getting them through a time where there wasn't higher leadership. So thank you very much, Ryan, for all of your hard work and your continued support to have me trained and brought up to speed. Okay, so with that, I will read to you my statement. So good evening, Commissioners. For those I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, my name is April, and I'm honored to serve as the Animal Care Service Manager. Animal welfare has been a part of my life for more than 20 years. I started in animal sheltering as an animal care technician in 2004, and over the years, I've had the opportunity to work in many different areas of animal welfare and local government. Those experiences have given me a real appreciation for how complex this work truly is. Running a successful shelter isn't just about caring deeply about animals, although that is certainly the heart of it. It's also about supporting your staff, serving our community, using our resources responsibly, building stronger partnerships, and constantly looking for ways to improve. I'm not sure if you're a fan of James Clear and his book on atomic habits, but he has a rule of increasing your productivity by 1% every day, and that's something I try to live by in my personal life as well in my work life too. As I step into this role, one of the things that is very important to me is having an open and productive relationship with this commission. I'm going to say that again. As I step into this role, one of the things that is very important to me is having an open and productive relationship with this commission. I want you to feel comfortable sharing ideas, bringing forward concerns, and likewise, I hope we can create an environment where staff can openly share what we are experiencing, the things that are going well, the challenges we are facing, and the areas where we all still have work to do. I don't expect that we will always see every issue from the exact same perspective, and I actually think there is value in that. We each bring different experiences and expertise to the table. If we approach those differences with curiosity, respect, and willingness to learn from one another, I think we can make us better. I also believe transparency builds trust. My goal is to provide this commission with meaningful information and context so that you have a clear understanding of what's happening within animal care services. Not only our successes, but the challenges as well. Ultimately, I hope we can keep our focus on the same goal, continuing to grow this shelter into an organization that our community can be proud of. That means improving outcomes for animals, providing excellent service to our residents, supporting and developing our staff, strengthening our relationships with partners and volunteers, and being willing to evolve when we identify opportunities to do something better. I'm excited about where we can go from here. I know I have things to learn from each of you. I truly hope that I can meet with all of you on an individual level so that we can kind of hear what our experiences are and the ideas that can be brought to the table. And although I'm here and giving an introductory statement, I have no intention to answer any questions this evening or address any concerns this evening. I am learning and observing, and I ask for your patience as I take in and process all the many, many layers that Front Street has to offer. I do wish to communicate with you all in the next couple months, so I will be reaching out to you individually to set up a time for that. I'm looking forward to working with you, keeping our communication open, building something really, really strong together. And I know this is super, super cheesy, but my motto coming into the city of Sacramento is same dream, same team. And I just want to keep that in perspective for all of us. We all want the same thing, and we really need to achieve that as a team together. So with that said, I hope you will embrace promoting high-quality animal care welfare with me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Speaking for the commission, we look forward to working with you, and a very warm welcome. All right, now, do we have speakers slips on this item?
We do not have speakers for this item.
All right, are there commissioners who wish to speak? Commissioner Verga. The manager's report, yes.
Regarding that, I know I discussed with you, Ryan, you know, the kennel clean and disease control, because we've just seen that there's a lot of dogs that are getting pneumonia. And so what's interesting to me, so this is a different strain than the Bordetella vaccination will address. Is that kind of unusual? I mean, does that happen? I mean, is this really a weird strain, or I'm just, I don't know if you know, but I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, well, I'm not a vet. I probably should have said that for any members of the public listening. But from conversations with our veterinarian, it sounds like there's a number of different things that can sort of lead to this canine upper respiratory infectious complex. And you know, Bordetella is one, this mycoplasma is another, and it sounds like there's some others as well. And so when this started happening, we started noticing this trend, like, hey, this seems like it's is more serious than we typically see, we did a lot of testing to figure out exactly what was the cause, because that it's going to be treated very differently depending on what is actually causing the condition.
Gotcha. And so I guess that I'd wonder, preventatively, is there a protocol that there's a medical professional, that being like a veterinarian or a registered vet tech, someone who has more medical experience, that's putting eyes on every animal, consistently every day to make sure that they're not showing signs of this disease? Because it seems prophylactically it would be a good idea to start them on antibiotics, but maybe not. I don't know. I just wondered, what the process is there.
I'd have to check to see what the medical team's current process is. Typically it's a vet check system where our technicians that are cleaning each kennel every day, feeding the dogs, seeing them, are noticing these things and then reporting them. They also have standing orders where they can prescribe antibiotics without a vet necessarily having to, depending on what the symptoms are.
Gotcha. And another question: when you say that it's progressing quickly, how quickly with some dogs? I mean, like in a day or two, are they really sick and dying? I mean, I'm just curious how serious it is.
Yeah, I don't feel like I can speak to the exact timeline, but yes, from initial symptoms to the dog becoming very sick has been much faster than we would normally see. So my impression is, within a couple days, the dogs are taking a pretty serious decline.
Gotcha. And then they're transferred to medical, or they're getting fluids, or they're starting antibiotics. Then, I mean, is that a protocol? I guess that's my question, because there have been concerns about that not being a protocol.
Yeah, once they're reported to the medical team. I know we had one, perhaps one of the ones that you were talking about, where the medical team became aware of it, saw it the same day, and started treatment for it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify. So when a dog comes in or an animal comes in, we vaccinate for Bordetella? Okay. And then one other thing, when I was looking at the statistics that I started noticing, and I actually looked back throughout this year, which is why I asked for rescues to be added to our list. So cats are 5.6 times more likely to be euthanized than to go to a rescue, and dogs are over 3.5 times more likely to be euthanized than go to a rescue. So our rescue transfer numbers are very low. Numbers are gone, but for this last month it was 28 cats and 16 dogs, and that's kind of why I want to talk about our rescues. So how can we beef that up? Not to say that rescues aren't also drowning in animals. I mean, and until we get to the spay neuter, it's an overall issue. But being able to try and enhance our rescue partnerships. It's a way to look at trying to decrease our euthanasia and help with more positive live outcomes. So that's just why I flagged it, because I just started really noticing, going, hey, we euthanize way more than we ever transfer into rescues, and I don't know if that's something we can make a huge impact on, but it's definitely something we should explore more. So, Commissioner Bell.
Yes, I did want to brag a little bit about KICO. So one of my successes is back in April of last year, I started a project at Arden Mall, and we finished up around September. And in that time, we trapped 42 cats, and we got 42 cats fixed and returned. One of them lost an eye, one did get euthanized. One had been hit by a car, but she recovered on her own. We pulled 22 kittens from that project that went to Front Street, and most of them were adopted. A few had Pan-Luc, so they were euthanized. And we terminated 27 fetuses. So that's just one project that we worked on. And that was all from somebody call in because a cat got hit by a car. And when animal control went out, they couldn't get to the cat where it was. So they referred it to Kitco. And we went out and found all those cats. So anyway.
I just want to flag, Commissioner Bell and I met for lunch, and she told me all about all the efforts that the Kitten Connection group does, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, there's only 5 of us that currently are official Kitco go out and check out the calls. So, and I know it's made a big impact on animal care services that the officers don't have to go out and, try to find the cat or try to talk to the owners of the mom and baby cats. So, yeah, it's definitely been now one of my pet projects.
Very impressive. Commissioner Benedict.
Yeah, congratulations, Commissioner Bell. That's impressive, actually doing something out there. I can't, thank you enough. I did have, going back to the manager's report about the euthanasia, and I was wondering, and I had mentioned this to Director Zimmerman a while, during the tour, I think, that I had when I first became a commissioner. A way that we could increase rescue pull is just by saying, offering, you can pull them, they're already spayed and neutered, and they have their shots. More rescues would pull more dogs because they don't have to worry about those two things, I just think it's kind of and plus the dog's already there, we can set up a date, cats too, cats and dogs. I just think that'd be a great way to increase or decrease the euthanasia and increase the rescue pools, because they're turnkey. Of course, that can't really work if it's a dog that's ill and can't get, shots and spayed or neutered or cat. But I just think that's something that might help to bring those numbers down and increase the rescue pool. Oh, and the other thing, I just had one more thing. For the sanitation, it sounded like that was like a cry for help or a call to action for you. If we were to volunteer, like somebody like me works a lot, would that be something where I would sign up to be a volunteer, or can commissioners just come in and say, hey, I've got 2 hours, let me clean some kennels, tell me what to do?
Typically, you would need to become a volunteer to come in and volunteer independently. I was going to say we could do a big fun working group, but that would probably violate the Brown Act. So that's normally how we get around that. We'll do like a single day volunteer agreement or something like that.
We're working and not discussing the work with the commission. It is not, we could get around the Brown Act that way. You can't discuss the commission work too much if you're scrubbing the kennel and you're in separate kennels.
That's right. Yeah, divide everyone amongst the 5 buildings. Yeah. But so I at this point, I think that you would need to go through the normal volunteer process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Christie?
Thanks, Ryan, for the presentation, and welcome, Ms. Stevenson. We're so happy you're here. Just when we talk about our numbers and when we specifically mention euthanasia, and I know that we do specifically have times where we're presenting on that, and we go further into the details. I do think it's helpful for us to pull out some of the reasons for disposition. So if we're euthanizing for medically untreatable things, for example, during kitten season, of which June and July are very heavy kitten season, so we're getting a much higher proportion of kittens who are not going to survive even with maximum care. I want for us to always keep in mind that euthanasia numbers are going to follow somewhat predictable path. I can only speak to the cat side of things with that, but remind ourselves that unfortunately euthanasia, it's a tool and it ends suffering, and so for those populations of animals where it is the best outcome, I want to acknowledge that. So when we look at our numbers and our live release adjustments, so
The numbers, Ryan, that you share are publicly accessible, and I know that we all know how to access them. And if anyone doesn't know, Ryan can explain how to access those online. So I would ask if it's possible to get a little more detail on the breakdown of euthanasia reasons. If not in the manager's report, then if we ever go back to talking about euthanasia again. And then I just wanted to shout out Ashley and the cat foster program, because I think they've been doing a phenomenal job. This is Ashley's first kitten season in the position, and I know last year Front Street didn't have a person in that position, which must have been so challenging for the entire team. I've been a very proud foster for the program this summer, and I think I'm like close to my 20th kitten for the summer. The amount of communication that's coming out from them to the foster volunteers has been tremendous. Almost like at least weekly, but occasionally daily emails of which animals are most at risk and which ones need to leave the shelter. And I just want to commend the work that that team is doing, and imagine that most of those positive outcomes are through their good work. So thanks.
Commissioner Verga?
I too want to thank Denise. We share a great love for cats and kittens, so I appreciate that so much. One question I have for you, because I try to step up whenever I can and help them too, but how, because I know a lot of times I'll see on Nextdoor, call Kitten Connection, call 311. How do you decide whether you can go or not? Because you must be, I mean, you could answer the phone regarding help needed for cats and kittens all day long, 24/7, right?
Yes, and it can be. So it comes through, we don't necessarily get called. It goes through a Teams app. We prioritize sick, injured, and abandoned first. And then after that, it's situational, and it's all based on how many cats are at the shelter. If we go out and the cats are ill, then they do have to come in. But as far as everything else, we talk to the caller and see if, they're willing to hold on to them for a while until there is such room at the shelter. Prior to the big adoption event, we had over 400 kittens in foster care. And, like Sam was saying, Ashley sends out a list of what needs to go out. And then she also at the bottom says, okay, I've got 4 homes for bottle babies. Well, if we get bottle babies and we don't have homes, that's not a very good outcome usually. We've got homes for weaners. We have this many homes for weaners, this many homes for feeder growers. So it's not just somebody calls and we look and we go. It's, you have to encompass everything of what's going on at the shelter and what is out in the community. So it's kind of juggling sometimes.
Yeah, I bet. That's interesting. I just wondered if there's a priority. Well, that's mathematical, that's statistical. There's all kinds of things you have to keep track of there.
Right. Priority is sick, injured, and abandoned.
What about pregnant?
So pregnant, Ryan had addressed that 2 months ago, where if they have kennel space, they will take in a pregnant cat if it's going to be one that's an RTF cat. If it's friendly, then it is, weigh in the odds of taking up a kennel space. But if it's an RTF cat, they'll bring it in, spay it, and it gets returned.
Can it, I guess my question would be, can it come in and get spayed and stayed? But I guess that's...
If it's feral, no.
Not if it's feral. Of course not if it's feral. That would never make sense. That would be a death sentence.
And there are situations too where we've gone out and mom might be feral. We get the okay to bring them in through, a lot of times we clear it with animal care services also. So we bring them in and the people will say, are you going to bring our cat back? because there's a lot of community members that want their cats back. I'm finding that more now than what I have in past years. So,
Well, thank you again.
Commissioner Bagley?
Oh, just a quick question. On these return to owner, Ryan, is there any way you can break down and tell us how many go out the door when they're returned to owner intact? Is that too much to ask? Is that hard to get?
I don't think we could make it automated. I believe there would, be manual work involved, similar to when the presentation I did when we discussed that item. So integrating with our Microsoft Power BI, I don't think there's a way to do that.
Commissioner Berga?
Points that I just wanted to make is if there is, we don't have to get into discussion about it, any foster dog counseling. I think that's so important, especially, the larger dogs are a little more complicated. And I've just seen some information indicating that there's not a lot of, and I think that's just really important. And then the other thing that I'm noticing is a lot of times when dogs are returned, there are not notes as to why they're returned. And I just think that that's really valuable information. If it's a foster return or if it's an adoption return, to make sure that those notes are extensive and are there, because that can really help with that guidance for either future adopters or fosters.
All right. Seeing no more speakers, we will move on to our next discussion item, number 5, strategic planning for community spay and neuter clinics. I believe you're Ryan, you're back on.
All right. I noticed, I was like, this isn't the same clicker, right? Losing my mind. All right. Okay, pull up my notes here. Okay, great. Well, we got through the big hurdle, which was getting the funding. And so now we want to figure out how to use it in the most effective way possible. So I'll give just a little bit of background, especially for our newer commission members. Well, an overview of this brief presentation. We're going to talk about the background of the funding for the spay-neuter clinics, our history of collaboration with Animal Balance, our map of the neighborhoods that potentially in highest need based on the number of stray animals and where they come from in the city, and the areas that we're seeking input as staff begin the planning and scheduling process for these clinics. So background, City Council approved a budget augmentation request of $500,000 for this fiscal year to expand spay and neuter services specifically for underserved community members. Council directed staff to coordinate 10 mobile clinics with Animal Balance. Each clinic is expected to spay or neuter approximately 200 animals. And so our history of working with this vendor, we did 5 clinics with them in 2025. One was a community animal-based clinic. It was consistently found to be the most affordable vendor, and we were able to spay or neuter 988 animals. I printed out the map. I think everyone should have a copy of it, but this is a really cool map that our GIS team put together that shows a couple things. One is it shows the areas from which we intake the highest number of stray animals. We can mostly ignore the area there around Front Street. That is primarily going to be from folks saying that they found the animal right very near the shelter, probably to avoid any potential jurisdiction issues. Personally, I've driven around those corners for 11 years and seen very few, if any, stray animals, but that is where some folks report finding them. But the other areas of the city we can see up there in Del Paso Heights area, that is one of our main hotspots, as well as some other areas of the city. And then you'll also notice the cross marks there. Those have been identified as disadvantaged neighborhoods. And so we can see there is some correlations, some overlap there, at least in certain areas. I wanted to talk about the facility requirements as well. This is one of the big ones, especially depending on where we would like to have these clinics and how distributed these clinics will be, if it'll be similar locations or if they're going to be all throughout the city, because there's some specific facilities requirements that we have to meet to stay compliant with laws. Now, some of these may change. There is a bill, it's AB 2010, the SNP Act, which seeks to remove some of these requirements, which can be very strict and can make it very difficult to find facilities that meet these needs. I believe the next development in that bill will be in September. I believe we'll know whether it passes or not in September. So that could expand the locations we can use, but as of now, these are our requirements. So the room the size of a small gymnasium that can accommodate prep, recovery, and dog housing, and it needs to have multiple electrical outlets and a reliable power source. This is one of the tougher ones. It needs a separate surgery suite with doors that close and needs to be attached to the main room. A separate holding area with a door for cats, which can be a large bathroom. We've done that before, and must be attached or close by, and also cannot be in a separate building. A sink area to wash and clean surgical instruments, preferably attached or close by. A parking area or ability to conduct a drive-through drop-offs. Access to the building from Thursday at 2 through Sunday at 7, because we do these as weekend-long clinics. And then all areas being utilized must have working heating and air conditioning. So, wanted to bring this up because obviously we all live in the city and have a lot of experience with potentially different facilities. So if you're looking at this and you think of places that might meet these requirements, please let us know so we can look into them. And so the main areas of input that we're looking for tonight are kind of the areas or the neighborhoods that we should focus on for this funding. Facilities, like I just mentioned, putting our heads together as far as our knowledge of the city and the buildings within. And other requirements, so potential qualifying requirements for the service, like income, or if we want to focus on certain breeds, et cetera. One of the things for me that is really making sure that this funding has an impact. I think what we'd really love to see is, hey, we spay and neuter these 2,000 pets, and next year and subsequent years we see a reduction in intake. Maybe it's animals that aren't roaming because they're fixed. Maybe it's the puppies or the kittens that weren't born. So we'd really like to, for $500,000, really see a tangible impact. I did a little bit of research here. Our audit determined there's about 200,000 owned pets in the city. I've seen estimates that are higher than that. And then the American Veterinary Medical Association estimates that about 70% of owned dogs are spayed or neutered, and that owned cats, about 80% are spayed and neutered. That's national, that's an estimate, that's not necessarily Sacramento. I could definitely see us having fewer than 70% dogs spayed and neutered. That seemed high to me. But if that's true between dogs and cats, that would mean that 75% of the pets in our city are spayed and neutered, which means that 25% are not altered. If we have 200,000 pets in the city, that means that about 50,000 pets are not altered. With this grant funding, we'd be spaying or neutering about 2,000 of those pets, which is about 4%. And it's a meaningful number, but it is a pretty small number in the grand scheme. And so in my mind, if we want to see this funding and these surgeries really having a tangible effect on the shelter, I think it's important to be strategic, and that's why we really wanted to kind of elevate this topic, discuss as a group. We know where the pets are coming from. We know what breeds tend to impact shelters the most. The Huskies, the Shepherds, the Pit Bulls. As far as the large dogs, and we also know that large dogs do have the highest impact, because we can only typically pair up to 2 at a time. And as we've seen from our working group, they have a harder time getting adopted. Their length of stay is longer, so the impact of every large dog is substantially greater than the small dogs. So just all things to consider. But given all that, I'd love to open it up for a discussion, see what you think.
All right, one thing, being appointed by District 2, one thing that Councilmember Dickinson has pointed out to me on every time that I've met with him and discussed animals is that would be the very large red area right here that is the #1 for animal calls and #1 for strays. Also, interestingly enough, I was learning out of the large dog work group, a #1 area for adopting animals, so I think there's a correlation there. But I had passed on before previously by his input, Hagenwin Community and Robertson Community Centers are both good options that would meet these needs. We need to be strategic and bringing these services to the areas that are most impacted. Not only is District 2 is the highest call volume, but it's also one of the most disadvantaged communities. So the population of animals is there, and the funding to spay and neuter is not. So it is a very strategic thing to try and really bring a lot more services into District 2. One of the recent animal balance happened over in Natomas, which is where I am, which is not a disadvantaged area. And it did not seem to me like it was the most impactful use for a spay and neuter clinic by having it in an area where is, fairly well funded versus some of our areas which are desperately not. So that's one thing that I wanted to really flag for this. I had participated in a spay neuter clinic where the SNP van came on site into District 2, and meeting with the people who brought their animals there. There were so many people that were so very excited for it to be there. It was right there on Del Paso Boulevard, in the heart of the area, and most of those people were coming on foot because they did not have transportation. So that bringing it to where it's needed is vitally important for making an impact. So that's my. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Yes. So anyway, that was just. But we do have public speakers, so let's hear from our public.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We do have one speaker, Jared Thaler.
Sorry.
Welcome again.
Thank you. Before I begin, I would like to credit the PAW Fund, who provides crucial animal health services, including free vaccines to underserved communities in Alameda and Contra Costa County every day, and who helped me prepare these remarks. I hope we all agree the important thing here is that we need to reach the animals most in need, the ones with the fewest other options, the ones most likely to wind up with unwanted litters. That means the animals whose owner has no phone and no way to sign up in advance, the animal whose owner has no fixed home to fulfill residency requirements, the owner who does not have any way to prove or is unwilling to provide proof of their income, the animal who has no papers declaring their animal's breed, the animal whose home is just across some imaginary line that the animal crosses every day to play, explore, or to breed. If we want to stop unwanted animal pregnancy, we have to reach the animals that otherwise fall through the cracks of the system. Every barrier we place is one more set of animals with nowhere else to turn who we cannot reach. That means no barriers and active community outreach and engagement, active transportation efforts, as you said, and assistance. That means less time and money on elaborate methods to stop people from abusing the system, and more time and money building a system that puts the animals first. On a slightly different note, it is not clear to me whether this is a one-time grant or an annual commitment. I would like the committee and the city to understand that a single unneutered dog and their offspring can easily produce 2,000 new unfixed dogs in a 5-year time span. Meaning if this is not leading to an ongoing commitment, any benefits will be short-term or negligible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Chair, that completes our speakers for this item.
All right, thank you very much. All right, commissioners. Commissioner Benedict.
First of all, I'd like to say to Jared, I agree with you 110%. It really is critical that we spay every single dog or cat that somebody brings in to have spayed and neutered. Just provide it. You know, let's remove the barriers. I just love how you said that. It was so eloquently put, and it's time. It's time. As far as the $500,000, Ryan, you said that Animal Balance was going to be the, I guess, a vendor. Do you have a cost per animal or a cost per cat, cost per small dog, large dog breakout?
I don't. You know, the clinic does. You know, the vendor will specify the number of dog neuters, large dog spays, cats, et cetera, kind of based on their calculations as far as what they can get done in a day. So, but you know, roughly speaking, you know, we're talking about it'd be 500,000, and we're expecting 2,000 surgeries. So roughly $250 per animal.
Okay. And then the other thing that I had was that I had researched a little bit, and I saw and heard that Animal Balance won't be available. Like, they have no openings until next year, January-ish. So between now and January, are we just going to sit on that money and or are we going to try to find other vendors that can maybe fill in and take some of that to start this going now, you know, so we can stop all this breeding?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, in one respect, it's going to take that time. This is going to be a huge project. We're identifying staff that are going to be able to help even outside of the animal care department to be able to help with the scheduling and the logistics. It's going to be a really big lift to identify these sites and schedule them and implement whatever kind of screening or whatever sort of process we're going through for getting people signed up for these clinics. As far as other vendors, it's my understanding that we don't have the ability to work with other vendors because the dollars were specifically approved with Animal Balance in the language, with the understanding that they could spay or neuter that number of animals. So for this funding, I don't believe we have the ability to work with other vendors. However, we are, you know, always looking for other opportunities. We have grant funding specifically for pets of unhoused owners that, you know, another vendor, perhaps such as SNP, could be a really good match for. So, you know, we're open to discussions for any vendor that could provide spay or neuter and can give us options for how to get it done.
Is that something, you said that for this one, we can't go to another vendor. Is that something was decided by whom?
When City Council approved the budget, it was, you know, written into the language that the $500,000 would be spent to do 10 clinics with Animal Balance. So based on that, and based on everything I've heard, we don't have the ability to utilize additional or other vendors besides what was approved by council.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Treat.
Yes, and Ryan, I've enjoyed working with you.
Well, thank you.
If I go off and don't ask to be put back on, I will actually miss that. On the legislative side, so AB 2010 by Soria, it doesn't have an urgency. So it'll have to live or die between now and August 31. And should it pass the Senate floor this week, go back for concurrence, we do have the ability within our charter to suggest to the City Council that they write a letter of support.
So I'd like y'all to consider that. It'd have to be timely, because the governor then has until September 30th to sign or veto bills. Having said that, if it is signed into law, you could let the spay and neuter clinics know that it will take effect January 1 because it doesn't have an urgency. So they could start scouting out places knowing that it's going to take effect January 1 to get by the surgery premises issue. But I don't know, I only see one opposition group on record in the history of the bill. So it's probably going to make it to the governor.
Awesome.
So question for you, Commissioner Treat, was that a motion?
Well, I think it is a motion, so.
It would be a motion if
the
you want
reason
this
I have
body
any-
to do something.
The reason that I have any hesitation at all is there is one group, Fixed Shelters is opposing, and I don't know why.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I don't know why. Perhaps when Commissioner Virga speaks, she could let you know what that is. It actually looked like a decent bill to me, but it's something that you should discuss. But since we don't meet again until mid-September, and it takes time to get this through the legislative committee and have council agree that they want to support it or not, it's something to take into consideration.
But I'm getting looks like we probably cannot because it's not on the agenda. Okay. So it is a consideration for next time. But it might be done by then. Commissioner Virga.
Okay, just briefly, I'm actually not my nonprofit is not the only one that opposes AB 2010, and I'll tell you why we oppose it. The California Veterinarian Medical Board opposes it because it is making changes to the current guidelines that veterinarians need to follow for spay-neuter. If you know the history of Animal Balance, and they are a wonderful group, okay? They have saved a zillion lives and a zillion animals spay-neuter. But you have to understand where they started is out of the country, okay? They went to third world countries to do MASH-style clinics with tables and with tents, you know, in areas that have no veterinarians and have no resources at all for spay-neuter. And they only started working in California during COVID. And the reason why they did not ever work in California, even though they've been operating their Bay Area nonprofit for over 20 years, is because they do not meet the California veterinary guidelines. And in particular, it's a problem for spay-neuter because infection is so prevalent, and a lot of the issues pertain to air quality, and that's why you need a separate room for spay-neuter, okay? So I'm not going to go into the larger details there, but they are the only current MASH-style clinic operator in California right now. And so the concern is that we share with the California Veterinarian Board is that so basically AB 2010 is trying to legislate around the guidelines and regulations of the Vet Med Board. And in so doing, you know, you run the risk of new people coming into this space who do not have the extensive experience that Animal Balance has, and you're going to put animals at risk. And so, you know, we want to have, everybody wants more spay and neuter. Will this bill passing increase spay neuter? It won't. Animal Balance is Animal Balance. That's why they have they're booked up, okay? I mean, you can't get a slot with them, I don't think, until next year. And so, anyhow, that's a whole other topic, but I want to give you the background. And I guess my concern is, with the language limiting this to Animal Balance only, is that, and you were talking about it's a cost thing, they're $250 an animal. I will tell you this, snip, spay, neuter, okay, they're $125 a cat. My nonprofit we did that D2 clinic. I sponsored that so that it was $25 for a cat and $35 for a dog, okay? And we pay the difference. It's $5,000 a clinic. It varies from the weight, and if it's a big dog, for instance, Animal Balance doesn't do large dogs over $80. They don't do Frenchies, okay? SNP, there's this little bus they can pull in anywhere. They don't need 12 volunteers a day. That's the one thing we're not talking about here too. Isn't that 12 volunteers that you need per day, per clinic, to work the Animal Balance? So I guess what I want to say is, why not, and we are talking, commissioners are talking to the mayor and city council on this right now, to remove the restrictive language. Every day that you do not spay and neuter animals, I agree with you, Jared, 100%, you know, they're exponentially increasing in numbers. Denise knows this, especially cats. Cats and kittens are just everywhere, out of control right now. It's horrible, the suffering that they're going through. So this money is so wonderful. Thank you so much for making sure that it's there. But what I'd say is take out that restrictive language. For instance, right now, I know for a fact that at Front Street, there are 15 animals who have been adopted over the weekend who cannot go to their homes because they're not spayed and neutered. I know you're short a vet, you have a lot going on. If you had that limitation taken off, you could hire independent veterinary contractors who could come in and make sure that those animals were being taken care of. You have
Can I ask you to pause for 1 second?
Sure.
It is 7:28, so we either have to make a motion to extend this or our mics turn off in 2 minutes. So, is there a motion?
Motion to extend. Second.
That is a motion by Commissioner Benedict, second by Commissioner Treat.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, please continue.
I just think it makes sense. You've got this money sitting there, right? It makes sense to take the restriction off, okay? I already reached out to Maria at Community Spay Neuter, and I said, hey, what could you do with the $100,000 for spay neuter? You know, make us a proposal, you know? SNP, I've already talked to Melanie about that. Could you give us some better pricing? You know, SNP can go, the beauty of SNP, and I've done over, I don't know, 11, 12 clinics now in the last year and a half, is that they can go wherever the need is. They do the scheduling or not, you know, like in a case like this, if you knew that it was going to be $10 for a cat or $12 for a dog, whatever, they can do all the scheduling. You don't need a scheduler. Hiller can tell you how complicated that scheduling could be. And then you have Community Spay Neuter. You could, you know, who knows? There's another clinic up in El Dorado Hills now that's giving some really good pricing. So I just think that to wait doesn't make sense. And I know for a fact that it will reduce the intake of animals into the shelter. So that is the reason why I think, you know, that restrictive language could be reconsidered. And my understanding is that it might be. So that's, and the other thing I want to say, Samantha, your voucher program, you know, it's like we've forgotten about vouchers. They're so wonderful. People love them. I used to use them all the time. And that could be, you know, something that we could get out to those communities that really need it. And when they call SNP, it's what we used to do, right? I have the voucher number, it's 1234, but that's an opportunity too. So who knows? I just think everything, take away all the restrictions for spay neuter. The more, the better. Thank you.
Commissioner Christie.
Thanks. So, you know, I agree that the restrictions about which clinic gets used does make this more challenging in a way that I don't think we had anticipated when the initial request for funding went out. So that's kind of unfortunate. Brian, some questions that you probably can't answer right now, but if you did get answers and followed up with us later, I think that'd be great. Just with Animal Balance being the chosen vendor, I'm curious what the breakdown is of animals within a given clinic day. For example, large female dogs take significantly more time than like a male cat neuter is probably a 2-minute procedure. So as we talk about which populations and which animals to target, I think that that's helpful information for us. Totally agree about targeting the most at-risk animals, like when we walk through the shelter and we see high population of pitties and large breed dogs, and kind of targeting the likely parents of those dogs sounds great. I'm assuming that this is a no cost to the community, which is wonderful, but I think another option is very low cost, like a small copay gives people a little bit more of an incentive to show up. And I guess I'm curious if in past clinics were no-shows an issue, or has that not really been an issue? And how can we utilize a wait list to make sure that we don't waste any of this opportunity? And then is there anything else that's included with the surgery? Are they also including vaccines, rabies? Does that rabies then mean that that animal will need to be licensed? Like, will the owner start getting those letters that you need to license your pet? So just some questions about details that might influence how we participate. But I'm just really eager to help with this, and to any extent possible, like whatever. Sounds like it's a lot of work to take the appointments and to make the reservations and to do the outreach, but I would hope that the work that we invest in can be kind of used as a framework template, so that if we get this money in future years, that this becomes an easier and easier system. So I'm sure that a lot of us commissioners would be really interested in helping with that admin side and volunteering at the clinic. Thanks.
Commissioner Benedict.
Yes, I completely agree with Commissioner Christie and Commissioner Verga regarding maybe moving it out of animal balance vendor only. And I just have to say that Pilots and Pups used SNP recently for a smallish dog, and it was out the door $165 for spay, one vaccine, and a chip. So. Yeah, all vaccines, okay. It was all vaccines, and also the chip. So it was really cost effective, So I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Verga and Commissioner Christie said, that maybe if we could find a way to look around and get this started earlier.
Commissioner Morris?
To put on the table that at least Commissioner
Into
Bell.
your mic.
Commissioner Bell and Garcia and I have volunteered at 4 of the 5 or more animal balances. And yes, vaccinating is done, as well as microchips. So that's done at these clinics for the animals that are there.
Very good. Commissioner Bagley.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer just a few of these questions. Each day it's 75 animals for animal balance, and when you schedule, there's about 10, I would say about 10 to 12 of the large dogs each day, large males, large females, and then about the same for smalls, both sexes, and then probably a little bit more room for cats, higher number for cats. So I schedule for them, and yeah, it's laborious, but it's worth it, and I get to talk to folks and see how desperate they are, and they truly are. Most of them have had a couple litters, and it's been a tremendous amount of work. So they're ready. That doesn't mean there's not no-shows. And so we learned the hard way out at Bradshaw. All it took was one clinic, and when there's no-shows, the director there started a system where once she has a spreadsheet and it's completely full, she will send a reminder and tell them, please check in with me to confirm that you will be there. And I warn them quite a bit how important and how expensive and valuable their appointment is. And we've had way better luck by this tickler system and getting them to confirm back and emphasizing to them the importance of showing up. So I think that what we've had, it's 225 animals per event for the 3 days. And we've been able to get up to, well, if she overbooks, and there is some room for overbooking, especially for cats, she can get it over 225, but generally she's like at 218. And once you learn how to do all this emailing back and forth, and she's really in charge of it once I hand over the spreadsheet, it really does work. So it's more than 200. If you do it right, it's more than 200. And, it's, I think the last price was $43,000 for the event. So you can do the math and figure out what it is for each animal. I mean, they just do an average for each animal. They don't say the bigs cost this much and the smalls cost this much. But you're right. Oh, they could do the snip on the the smalls real quick. and it's always the females. And we've only had 2 cases of complication, and it had to do with the anesthesia, really. The dogs were allergic, only 2 in all the clinics we've had in the county, and I think we've had about 8 or 9, I think. I don't know, I'd have to check that.
Commissioner Morse.
I actually volunteered at one of the county ones with Animal Balance, and similarly, in my observations, the complications have been 0 or very minimal. We took care of very large dogs. In one, I remember taking care of a Doberman that was at least 80 pounds, and had some complications, and the team was right on it and went back into the surgical area. So that, you know, the weight is, they do large dogs. They have done large dogs. I just really hope folks, and I don't know enough about the Robertson Community Center, you were saying that, or the other community center. I do know that these requirements have been difficult to meet. And so, for example, there's been a couple of sites that won't let you in on a Thursday, or because they don't have the staff to do the custodial services or whatever. So if folks are interested in pursuing Robertson or Hagenwood or any of that, these criteria are pretty important to follow up on. The one that I helped volunteered at for Bradshaw was somewhere near Mather Air Force Base, and it was quite difficult because we had to go down the hall and around to where the surgical room was, then back to another room for where the cats were, and then around to another space where the animals were being recovered. And so space is a challenge when there's lots of hallways and lots of corners to go around, and where you're trying to have people have eyes on recovering animals, et cetera. So just keeping in mind these facility requirements, because I feel like the team at Front Street who's worked on this have potentially looked at some of these centers and couldn't make the space work. Mainly the separate surgery suite, and then the place to do equipment sterilization. But if you think these other sites are good, that'd be great, because I know that they're struggling, or there's been struggle to find sites.
And that's where the mobile clinics like the SNPs comes in handy, because they pack their own surgical areas.
Yeah.
Commissioner Verga?
Just a final bit. I know Animal Balance does have some restrictions that other clinics do not. They do not do Frenchies, or any of the smash-nosed dogs. And my understanding is they do not do anything over 80 pounds either. And SNP, I know, does not have those restrictions. Community Spay Neuter doesn't have those restrictions. And so that's something. Oh, the other thing is, I believe that that Animal Balance is 50-50 dogs and cats. And, one way that you could really even save a lot of money with SNP is just do cat clinics. I've done a lot of just cat clinics because you can get you get more bang for your buck. And, you could schedule it that way. But, and plus, with all the animals that have been turned away, at Front Street, they're just breeding out of control everywhere. And so that's why I do the cats, but something else to consider.
All right, well, I think we've got some homework. Commissioner Garcia?
Quick question. Julie, how many animals can SNPs do in a day?
They work on a point system.
Okay.
So if I do cat clinics, they can do 40 cats a clinic for $5,000. So, and if it's dogs and cats, they work on a point system. So it's the smaller dogs are like 5 points. The large dogs over 80 pounds are 20 points. So they work on, what is it? I'm forgetting now how many points, but they work on a point system. So it varies, but usually the average is about 35 animals per clinic. But with cats, you can do more.
How available are they? How soon do you
Mel's ready. They're ready. She's very, the founder is very committed to spay neuter. And in fact, she's always buying new trucks. Their trucks are like $300,000, mobile veterinary clinics. And she's got great teams. She pays her staff really well. And so she's got really dedicated, experienced people. So, I don't know, but I think, I think she'd be ready to rock and roll pretty quick. They're going to be back at Elks August 27th and 28th. They're just 2 days this time. I usually sponsor a day, and I'm supposed to be going out of town. Because I was going to say, I don't know if you've gone to see the clinic, but I know I could arrange for you guys to, come out and see how they work. But they're pretty amazing job that they do. I've been very pleased.
And one other thing, both Denise and I have met with Britton, who sets up the animal balance. We've talked about locations and stuff like that before. And if it doesn't fit the criteria of all the requirements, we've also talked about how could we form groups that help transport some of these animals back and
That'd
forth.
be really important.
So we talked about that because maybe some of these don't fit like the criteria, like in D2 or D1.
Well, we were going to do a pay to spay in D2 with the homeless community there. Remember, Jamie? We were out there because we were at the camps. And anyhow, it was just there. We just kind of didn't have time. But I was actually going to have my nonprofit do a pay to spay because that's a difficult thing a lot of times, as you've seen, that they don't want to spay and neuter their animals, and so I thought, well, okay, we can incentivize them. But one of the things that I will say, because what my nonprofit has done is $50 spays, or $50 spay neuters, and for cats in particular. And sorry. There's so many people that need help. And a lot of times there are elderly people who are taking care of these cats, and they don't have transportation. So I've tried to figure it out, but I know probably Itzel, who is so wonderful and such an amazing volunteer, I would love to put together a Front Street van or some way to help that occur, because we were going to do that with the camps. We were going to go to the camps and pick up the dogs and take them to the D2 clinic, and that's a really important aspect that I think could be coordinated, if possible.
And that's what we talked about, to help with that. And also on one of the animal balances that we did where the community had scheduled appointments in there, if they didn't show, I think they were ready to pull some more from the shelter.
Have some walk-ups.
Denise, of course, has always got car fulls of cats, so she went and got some. And I think the Hope program actually went and got some homeless pets and brought those in too. So they do have kind of some backup plans for those no-shows.
You will always
as well.
have no-shows, even if they're paying
Yes.
full price. You
Yes.
always will. I always overbook a little bit.
Yeah. So.
Commissioner Wells.
Right, it sounds like some of the commissioners have worked with Animal Balance before. Ryan, has Front Street worked with Animal Balance before?
Yes, we've, in 2025, we did 5 clinics with them.
Okay.
Which was mostly shelter animals, but also included one clinic that was for community animals. So we've had just under 1,000 animals spayed and neutered with them
And
last year.
did you experience any of the difficulties that I'm hearing?
Like for transportation?
Transportation or like unsterile situations or not experienced people performing? I'm just wondering how Animal Balance became the selected vendor.
Yeah. I think it's from at least our history of working with vendors, they could do the volume, the high numbers, as well as having the best price.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioner Morris Garcia? Nope. Okay. All right, well, thank you for the lively discussion. It seems like we have a few, some homework for commissioners. So we should probably follow up on this next month. But if you have any ideas of possible spaces, please make sure to reach out to Ryan and send that information along. But also start brainstorming and thinking about if we do want to put any requirements on it. I'm with Jared, though, that take any any barriers away. The one spayed animal saves, how many exponential lives in the future.
A day, so one clinic is a half a day. There's a 9 a.m. clinic and a 1 p.m. clinic, so it's usually 2 clinics a day.
All right, thank you. All right, our last item is public comments. Thank you so much for the public for holding out with us. Who do we have?
We do have one speaker. Speaker is Jared Thaler.
So I have been hearing from this committee and from elsewhere people saying that managed intake policy is antithetical to the shelter's open intake obligation to the city to take in strays. Open intake and managed intake are not opposites. The opposite of open intake is closed intake. That is what rescues practice. They take or reject any animal at their discretion and on their schedule. The opposite of managed intake is unmanaged intake. It is taking every animal, no matter your resources or capacity, or the risk to the animals already in your care. In a word, hoarding. Unmanaged intake leads to disease outbreaks, dog fights, injuries to volunteers. It leads to overcrowding, dogs suffering, and the euthanasia of people's pets. Unmanaged intake has been condemned by every major national organization. Managed intake means you take in every animal you safely can, prioritizing the animals that are most critical and not taking in more than you can safely hold. Managed intake means preserving resources such as empty kennels so incoming animals can be assessed to determine if they are aggressive or sick. Managed intake is a basic safety practice for people and animals at the shelter. Managed intake is about how you make hard decisions, not do we answer this call or ignore it, but do we answer this loose stray call and chase a dog for 3 hours, or answer 3 other calls about a bite dog, a dog in an overheated car, and a dog abandoned with no food or water for 3 days. If you want to see more intake, the answer is not unmanaged intake and inevitable system failure. The answer is more resources, more animal care staff, more officers to perform field visits, more kennels, more importantly, more resources to keep pets out of the shelter or to move them through faster and into new homes. That means more adoption counselors, incentives for landlords to allow pets, support to keep people from losing their homes and losing their pets. No barrier spay-neuter, programs to provide emergency foster for pets for people undergoing medical or financial emergencies.
Thank you for your comments. Chair, that completes our speakers.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. That concludes today's agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, and this meeting is adjourned.